Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Thursday, December 18th, 2025. I'm Errol Lewis. There's been a shakeup to Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani's administration already. His new director of appointments resigned just a couple of hours after decades-old anti-Semitic social media posts surfaced. Our Ayanna Harry was with the mayor-elect today and joins us now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Ayanna.
Good evening, Errol. The Anti-Defamation League is describing these social media posts from the woman tapped to lead the mayor's office of appointments as indefensible. Tonight, Kat DaCosta has apologized for her statements. She's also out of a new high-profile job. She was appointed to oversee new hires for the new mayor.
I am honored to be joining the Mamdani administration.
But after just 24 hours, Kat DaCosta resigned as director of the mayor's office of appointments. The Anti-Defamation League of New York and New Jersey said they uncovered anti-Semitic 2011 social media posts from DaCosta, including one referencing, quote, money-hungry Jews. Thursday afternoon, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was pressed about DaCosta's posts.
Obviously, I would strongly disagree with those statements.
The mayor-elect explained Thursday afternoon Catherine expressed her deep remorse over her past statements and tendered her resignation, and I accepted. DaCosta was one of several new team members Mamdani introduced this week.
He boasts a record of transformative leadership.
After running for mayor on a platform that was both ambitious and expensive, from free buses to free childcare, Mamdani is now turning to this man to figure out how to pay for it all. Sharif Suleiman will serve as city budget director.
Budgets are more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're about hopes and dreams of New Yorkers for a more affordable city.
He's worked for Mayor Adams and Mayor de Blasio, and in working for Mayor Mamdani, Suleiman will face his first challenge pretty quickly. President Donald Trump has threatened to cut federal funds to sanctuary cities like New York. A new report from the Independent Budget Office estimates the city will end the current fiscal year with a $380 million deficit, and a proposed city budget is due by February 1st. Still, Suleiman insisted
Our preliminary budget will reflect the mayor's priorities, and we will have a preliminary budget that's balanced.
Mayor-elect Mamdani announced Sharif Suleiman as his pick to lead the mayor's office of budget at the Pominock houses, which was a real homecoming for Suleiman because he grew up in that Flushing, Queens, NYCHA development, Errol.
So it sounds like they're going to need a new person to handle appointments, and that sort of bootstraps the whole rest of the administration, right? I mean, it's a pivotal job.
Certainly, we know that the Mamdani administration has so far received thousands and thousands and thousands of applications from New Yorkers who are interested and eager and want to work for that administration. They're going to have to go through all of those people. They're going to have to vet those people, and I think the question may likely come up, what was the vetting like for this director of appointments that these social media posts were able to slip through?
The person who resigned, if these tweets were from when she was 19, it was before she had any government service at all, I would imagine, and she did serve in the de Blasio administration. I guess they didn't know about this?
It appears that they did not know about this, and she also did not serve in as high profile of a role in the de Blasio administration. And I will also note that the Anti-Defamation League has previously said this organization will play a role in making sure that there's no anti-Semitism that bubbles up during the Mamdani administration. And so it seems that they are certainly keeping a close eye on whose administration is appointing.
And this wasn't like great intense detective work, right? I mean, if you know where to look, you can find anybody's tweets from
Yeah, it seems that she's no longer using the same Twitter handle name, but she did acknowledge making these statements. She apologized for making these statements and then resigned. Okay, thanks very much, Ayanna. Meanwhile, it has been a busy day at the City Council where lawmakers are voting on dozens of bills in this, the final meeting of the year. It's still going on right now. Our Dan Rivoli has been following it all day, and he joins us now from inside City Hall. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Errol. 73 pieces of legislation and resolutions, to be precise. And I know because I counted in the email council staff sent me of the agenda. And this is the last full council meeting of the year and for the term, as we're going to have a new council speaker and a new class of council members after the election. So this was really the last chance for council members to get all those bills they've spent the year working on to a vote. And for some of them, a lot of lawmakers are proud of them. Just as a for instance, discounted New York City ferry fares for middle school students, or a piece of legislation that would make the Department of Transportation add plants to the concrete medians when crews put in bike lanes. So those were some of the pieces of legislation that council members were talking about during the Q&A with reporters. But there were also more substantive pieces of legislation that took a lot of work to get to a vote and overcoming a lot of challenges. So, for example, there is going to be new legislation passed that would create what is known as just cause deactivation for app drivers, Uber and Lyft drivers, as well as delivery men and women known as the deliveristas. So that has been a new piece of legislation progressive council members have wanted to get passed. Then there's another bill that had some debate in the council chambers. It was basically the bill that would make multifamily dwellings that are considered distressed have to basically offer those buildings for sale for a 6-month period to give nonprofits the right of first refusal. So these would be, like I said, distressed properties, multifamily, and before the owner could sell to whoever that owner wanted to sell to, again, they had to wait 6 months to offer it first to nonprofits. The idea is a nonprofit would come in, get some benefits, fix up any problems, and keep those units affordable. But there was some debate against it, particularly from Republican council members, saying that this would be unconstitutional government regulation into the private sale of private property. I'm just going to give our viewers just a little viewing of that debate that took place in the council just moments ago.
You buy your own home, blood, sweat, and tears, and now the city gonna tell you who you could sell your own property to is absurd. And I hope my colleagues understand this. Maybe when years from now, when your children wanna sell their home to their child, they cannot do it. They have to go through HPD or give it to a nonprofit.
COPA will give certified, vetted preservation buyers the first chance to buy buildings that are in physical distress, that are in city enforcement programs for very lengthy periods of time, and that have expiring affordability restrictions. This is creating a program that will protect tenants and preserve permanently affordable homes.
And ahead of the final full council meeting for Council Speaker Adrienne Adams, she spoke to reporters, and she was getting asked a question from a reporter about a piece of legislation, and she, in her answer, offered advice for the next council speaker. The presumptive council speaker in the next term is Julie Menon from the Upper East Side. Here is some of that advice she offered to Menon.
My advice for the incoming speaker would be to do as much as you can to work very, very closely with the mayoral administration. Hopefully, the mayoral administration will get to know the members, get to know what's important to different districts, the constituents in the districts, and I'm really, really hoping for a great collaborative relationship with the incoming administration and incoming speaker.
Speaker Adams also said if any of this legislation that passes into law gets vetoed, that'll be up to the next council to override any vetoes. Errol.
Okay, and Dan, is this, are they doing debates on every piece of legislation? Because they'll be there all night if they're going to fight all of these issues out all over again.
Yeah, no, they started late, and the way they did it, for a substantial number of bills and resolutions, they basically, for our viewers who might work in the council or work in government, they basically couple them all together, and then each council member says, I vote aye on all of them, except intro, this, that, and the other, and then they explain their no votes. But basically, they'll say aye on everything, and then if they have any no votes or abstentions, they'll make a record of that, and they're also taking the opportunity to explain some votes, as you saw in that soundbite we played when it came up to that affordable housing nonprofit legislation.
Yeah, there are a lot of businesses, a lot of nonprofits, a lot of people with a lot of interest. I think I might even see some behind you. The lobbyists are all there tonight, right? Hanging out in the lobby?
Yeah, that's right. The lobbyists and also the interest groups. Look, when I got here early in the morning, Broadway was just packed with protesters and this group in support of this bill and that group in opposition to that bill. So we had the taxi workers out here in favor of the law against deactivations. And you had the hotel workers with their anti-Airbnb signs. And even the council staffers, the unionized council staffers, were out on the steps having their rally. So this was really the last chance for anyone with interest before the city, anyone with interest in legislation, to get out there, get your members out, and show there is support for this.
All right, the sights and sounds of democracy. Thanks very much, Dan. TikTok's business operations in the United States have been sold. A few moments ago, ByteDance, the Chinese parent company of TikTok, announced the deal, ensuring that the social media platform can continue operations in the United States. This comes after years of pressure from the federal government to sell TikTok to American investors over concerns about U.S. user data. 3 investors are buying TikTok. They include Oracle, a multinational technology company, as well as Silver Lake, a major tech investment firm, and MGX, an investment company owned by the United Arab Emirates. The deal is expected to close on January 22nd. It is time now for a break. Coming up, Bishop Ronald Hicks has been tapped by Pope Leo to be the next Archbishop of New York. We'll tell you all about him next. Also tonight, the CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council will tell us about how that organization is working to tackle anti-Semitism through a new curriculum in city schools. And later, I'll speak with a member of the mayor-elect's transition team about how Mamdani plans to help make families more prosperous. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost. And that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure. Why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of, they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. We've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Pope Leo has selected a new leader for the Archdiocese of New York. 58-year-old Ronald Hicks, the Bishop of Joliet, Illinois, will take over leadership of the Archdiocese from Cardinal Timothy Dolan. Dolan submitted his resignation earlier this year when he turned 75, as required under church rules. Cardinal Dolan introduced Bishop Hicks earlier this morning at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Our Alyssa Palicelli was there and filed this report.
a changing of the guard walking down the center aisle at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Cardinal Timothy Dolan arm in arm with Archbishop-designate Ronald Hicks. Bishop Hicks was selected this week by Pope Leo to take over leading the church for the nearly 3 million Catholics in the New York Archdiocese.
I am committed to working with the great variety and diversity of faith leaders and civic leaders to keep that hope alive and to make real the promise of the golden door by acting in mutual respect and working to uphold human dignity.
Like Pope Leo, Bishop Hicks grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Similarly, they both speak fluent Spanish and spent time living and working in South America. Hicks worked for 5 years in El Salvador, heading a church-run orphanage program that operated in 9 Latin American and Caribbean countries. He spoke in Spanish for part of his introductory remarks, mentioned the importance of the Latin American community for the church, and touched on recent immigration enforcement across the country.
Anything connected to these policies are connected to due process and again, with a great deal of respect for humanity, our brothers and sisters, how we see each other, how we relate to each other, all in that context of human dignity.
Hicks also touched on the church's sex abuse scandals. Earlier this month, the Archdiocese announced it is setting up a $300 million fund to compensate victims of sexual abuse who have sued the church. There are more than 1,300 outstanding claims.
I'm committed to learning about the issues before our church, including the funds the Archdiocese has set aside to help resolve sexual abuse claims. As a church, we can never rest in our efforts to prevent abuse, to protect children, and to care for survivors.
Back in February, Cardinal Dolan submitted his resignation once he reached the mandatory retirement age of 75. The Pope had the option of keeping Dolan on or accepting his retirement. Earlier in the week, we learned Pope Leo would be seeking his replacement. Dolan says he has spent the week getting to know Hicks and believes the church is in good hands.
Is there sadness in my heart? Sure, because I love the Archdiocese of New York. That sadness is mitigated by the gift that this new Archbishop already is.
Cardinal Dolan has not only been the face of the Archdiocese for nearly 17 years, but he's also been an important figure in local, state, and national politics. Cardinal Dolan does have ties to the Trump administration, so there will be a lot of attention paid to how Bishop Hicks will differ from Cardinal Dolan when he takes his new role as leader of the Archdiocese on February 6th. In Manhattan, Alyssa Policelli, New York 1.
Drawing on lessons from last year, Governor Kathy Hochul is looking ahead to her 2026 reelection campaign. The governor has been improving in the polls lately and remains well ahead of her other Democratic challenger, Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, as well as her 2 Republican opponents. Hochul's challenge next year will be to steer a course between the threats and needs of the Republican President of the United States, Donald Trump, as well as the Democratic Socialist Mayor of New York City, Zoran Mamdani. Our State House reporter Bernadette has some analysis. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. And although all of those arrows point towards a possible re-election for Governor Kathy Hochul, there's still a long way to go before the June primary.
You look at the crime rates today compared to what they were when I first became governor, it is dramatic.
Governor Kathy Hochul started 2025 championing a minimum wage hike and restarting congestion pricing after she stalled it. But in February, dueling complications stressed her command as the state's top executive.
Hey, Jones, good work. Stop the drill.
A 22-day wildcat strike engulfed the entire upstate prison system, leading to the firing of around 2,000 correctional officers. She then threatened to remove Mayor Eric Adams, then under federal indictment, from office if he did not rid City Hall of corrupt aides. He listened.
This is a very serious matter that is unfolding.
And when President Donald Trump threatened to kill the fledgling congestion pricing program, they cut a deal in the Oval Office to leave the cameras on and keep an offshore wind energy project open, in exchange for greenlighting a controversial gas pipeline project, according to sources.
Lights, cameras, action. They're staying on.
After Zoran Mamdani won the competitive mayoral primary in June, Hochul endorsed him. Now, she wants New Yorkers to recognize her efforts.
This will be the most pressure she's faced in any of her years to deliver on the affordability issue.
Although a recent poll gave her good marks, when asked how the state's overall affordability climate stacks up nationwide, respondents ranked New York among the worst.
I don't think they're connecting the dots between all of the good things that are happening, all of the improvements that are happening.
A moderate from Buffalo, Hochul has made the case that she and Mamdani get along on major topics: affordability, universal child care, and the federal government's approach to immigration.
You have a mayor in the city who has a big, shiny promise that he will want to deliver on in the form of child care, and you've got 4 months to figure out whether or not that can be done.
On the left, the Working Families Party is deciding whether to back Hochul or her wayward, although progressive, Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado, while acknowledging she leads him by a wide margin. Although Republican opponents want to tie her to Mamdani's identity as a Democratic socialist, their own candidacy may be hindered by the GOP White House.
Because of Trump, you've got tariffs increasing the cost to New York families by $4,200 a year. That's not too helpful. Prices are going up. People see it, even though Trump tells them it's the best economy.
Hochul, meanwhile, has a popularity issue in the suburbs.
Maybe do some things outside of the city, create her own sense of identity without creating conflict with the mayor.
But still, as New York's self-proclaimed first mom governor, she set up a pseudo-watchdog group ahead of Mamdani's inauguration, keeping tabs on the mayor-elect and left-leaning activists, and whether it will trigger a negative reaction from Trump.
She's got to make a case to those voters why they should choose her as an independent entity, even though they share the same party and a lot of priorities.
Opposed to income tax hikes, but not additional fees on corporations, Hochul tested her popularity before a pro-Mamdani crowd in October.
That's the witch, yeah,
I can hear you.
Hochul's upcoming multi-billion-dollar budget will need to weigh whether she can deliver for Mamdani and cover her bases. And this all comes as the governor is facing massive federal cuts to the healthcare system, which could impact not just the hospital system, but also, lower to middle-income New Yorkers, people across the board.
So even without knowing the specifics of what might be coming from Washington, we know that it's going to be a very tough budget season for the governor.
Very tough budget season, despite, we always end up getting better than expected estimates from Wall Street, right? Sales tax comes in higher. But the question is, where do you spend it? Do you put it into new spending or do you put it into old existing problems, especially when you're going to have holes?
Okay. Thanks very much, Bernadette. It is time now for a break. Coming up, President Trump has signed an executive order to reclassify and ease restrictions on marijuana. We'll bring you those details next. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over. Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together. It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood, because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. President Trump moved today to downgrade marijuana to a less restrictive drug classification. Although the reclassification does not make marijuana legal federally, it should make it easier for researchers to study the drug's effects. And it could pave the way for skeptical lawmakers and governors to further embrace cannabis. Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Popolars has the latest in this report.
President Donald Trump directed Attorney General Mamdani Thursday to downgrade the classification of marijuana, calling it common sense.
We have people begging for me to do this, people that are in great pain.
The president said the goal is to embrace the medical benefits of cannabis and related compounds like CBD. Downgrading marijuana from a Schedule I drug like heroin and ecstasy to Schedule III would place it in the same group as ketamine. Paul Armentano, with the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, says it's an effort President Joe Biden began in 2022 when he had the Department of Health and Human Services complete a review to determine the safety of cannabis. A year later, the agency concluded that marijuana did not belong in the Schedule I category.
The president doesn't have the ability to unilaterally change the classification of cannabis himself, but he can direct certain federal agencies, like the Attorney General's office, to use their statutory power to finalize this process that was begun under the Biden administration several years ago.
Attorney General Bondi will now do just that. But this change does not make marijuana legal at the federal level, something the president pointed out.
Rescheduling acknowledges the therapeutic legitimacy of cannabis as a medicine, but it still leaves in place the majority of federal policies that criminalize cannabis nationwide.
Currently, 24 states have legalized weed recreationally, and 40 have done so for medical use. Armentano thinks this move by the Trump administration could motivate skeptical lawmakers and state leaders, traditionally Republicans, to embrace cannabis and research around it.
We're seeing a message from the White House that cannabis is here to stay, this industry is here to stay.
Armentano says this rule change will be subject to a 60-day judicial review where it can be challenged. And if a judge finds any challenge has merit, the reclassification will be placed on hold while a legal battle plays out in court. So this is not done yet. Reporting at the White House, Taylor Popolars, Spectrum News.
It is time for a break now. Coming up, how can Mayor-elect Mamdani address concerns among Jewish New Yorkers? I'll talk it over with Mark Traeger. He's the CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council. That's coming up next. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Kirkland.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network, and factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As we told you earlier in tonight's show, after just one day on the job, Mayor-elect Mamdani's selection as his director of appointments, Catherine Almonte da Costa, has resigned after anti-Semitic posts from more than a decade ago were uncovered. This comes as anti-Semitic attacks have been making headlines recently, and some Jewish New Yorkers say they are worried about their safety in New York. The mayor-elect has made attempts to reassure Jewish New Yorkers, including vocally supporting the Hidden Voices curriculum, which teaches the city's public school students about Jewish American history with a special focus on New York. My next guest, Mark Traeger, is the CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, which played an instrumental role in planning and implementing the Jewish American history curriculum. He, of course, is a former member of the City Council and former senior member of the Department of Education. Welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Great to be with you, Errol. Thank you for having me.
Tell me about this flap that happened with the appointee who then resigned today. It's a little bit nuanced, we should mention, right? I mean, she was 19 at the time. She actually has a Jewish husband and Jewish children. So what she really believes, we haven't had time to process any of this yet, but I wanted to get your reaction.
I actually want to tell you, Errol, I had heard the news while I was on a great visit to Cornell Tech, my first time on Roosevelt Island, a beautiful education institution, which I have to say, as a former teacher, always a teacher, great place. And as I was leaving, I had received the news of these reprehensible comments that, yes, were made a decade ago, but still are landing in a very heavy moment right now. The stakes are high, Errol. The community is still reeling from what happened at Park East not too long ago, still reeling from what happened at Sydney. And I do appreciate that the mayor-elect has accepted her resignation. I think that's a positive step forward. But there's more work to do to reassure that he will be a mayor for all people, including Jewish New Yorkers.
What does he need to do?
Well, number one, I think need to strengthen the vetting process to make sure that things like this don't happen. This was the head of the appointments. This is one of the initial first big appointments. I think also just making sure that he is clear and unequivocal in his condemnations of hateful protests that happened, for example, at Park East. His initial statement was not acceptable, and we spoke to his team about that, and he later clarified and made clarifying statements. When you condemn hatred of any kind, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, there should be no qualifiers. It should be non-negotiable. Right. So again, I do think that today was a step forward in terms of accountability, but there's more work ahead.
Let me ask you about the trauma the community is working through after the Bondi Beach attack in Australia in particular. I've learned, I live in Crown Heights, as you know, and I know that just from personal experience that expressions of sympathy and solidarity from non-Jews are actually welcome at this time. It might seem like a small thing, but it's not such a small thing. It's both the least and the most that some of us can do.
And I have to tell you, Errol, and you continue to be a great leader and a partner, a fellow Brooklynite, and also the outreach we've received from interfaith leaders, from Muslim leaders, Christian leaders, Hindu, you name it, in this past week has been overwhelming and very much appreciated. You know, Hanukkah, which is a holiday that Jewish people are celebrating right now, is supposed to be a joyous, wonderful occasion. And one of the things that our faith teaches us is to be visibly Jewish. That's why we place our menorah by the window at a time when there are Jews who are afraid to be identifiably Jewish out in the streets. And that can never be acceptable, because an attack on one community is an attack on all of us. And that's why, as New Yorkers, our greatest moments when we come together, and the amount of support that I've received from elected officials from all backgrounds, interfaith leaders, has been so appreciated at this time.
Okay. Is physical safety an issue here in New York, as far as you're concerned?
You know, Errol, we just, I believe NYPD made an arrest today in terms of what just happened in Crown Heights the other day, where a Jewish person was attacked and there were reports of anti-Semitic slurs made. Yes, physical safety still remains a concern. We're still in the aftermath of what happened at Park East Synagogue, where Jews were gathering, practicing their culture, their faith, their identity, and these very hateful protesters gathered right at the door. And I do appreciate Commissioner Tisch's accountability when going down there, speaking with the leaders, as well as the mayor-elects reached out to the Jewish leaders there as well. And NYPD data continues to show what we all feel and see, that in terms of the hate crimes committed in New York City, the Jewish community is disproportionately impacted. But I want to say this too, and I appreciate you referencing earlier the education piece of this. Law enforcement alone cannot solve this. We're going to need to double down on education, community building, and one of the things I'm proud at JCRC to work with the current public schools chancellor, Melissa Villas-Ramos, and her team, and also the mayor-elect did endorse this during a debate that you hosted, so we appreciate you, Errol.
I remember, yes.
The work to work with our public school kids to make sure that they understand that the Jewish community is not just a faith-based group, it's an ethnic group, it has an origin story, and has contributed positively to New York and American life for many years, including also our Muslim neighbors, because coinciding with that initiative is a Muslim identity school curriculum, which is equally important as well.
Yes, in fact, I wanted to ask you about that. I had not looked at the Hidden Voices Jewish Americans 300-page curriculum. It's available in public schools. It teaches about the history of New York's Jewish community, and I, just skimming it, I was like, oh, I didn't know that. You learn stuff right away, and it's actually just interesting in and of itself. And it's aligned with the social studies curriculum, so it's feeding into. It's not sort of a side unit. It actually just helps people get grounded in all of the history that they need to know about the city as they get ready to sort of advance in their education.
That's correct, Errol. And just recently, we had a press conference with Public School Chancellor Melissa Villas-Ramos to announce the official launch of this initiative, where there's be about 12 schools, initial pilot across the 5 boroughs. They're working with us to select those schools, to provide training for educators. We're also very grateful to the UJ Federation of New York, a key partner of us that's funding some of the PD for teachers as well, to get this implemented. And I also, and on top of that, we're going to be launching what's called a student-to-student program, where I recognized when I was still working in the school system that there are some school communities in New York City where there's very few to almost no Jewish students present in the schools. What can we do to bridge that gap at JCRC? So we'll be identifying Jewish teenagers to visit some of these schools, to have peer-to-peer dialogue, to unpack what it means to be Jewish and to discuss their Jewish identity, and not having to rely on TikTok or social media, which often does not tell the accurate or full story.
Yeah, no, we're in a competition with a lot of people who either out of malevolence or ignorance are spreading a lot of crazy stories and old tropes and old stereotypes. What's the process going to look like beyond that? I mean, do you think this should become mandatory across all schools, all curriculums?
I think, as a former teacher and as someone who cares deeply about the public school system, this should be a part of our initiative to ensure that students see themselves and also to see in their curriculum the entire city, the beautiful mosaic of New York. When I was education chair in the city council, I actually worked with Speaker Adrian Adams, who I give enormous thanks for, and also my former colleague Danique Miller, where we funded the Black Studies curriculum to go into public schools. And former Chancellor Banks was also a very big proponent of that. There's funding in place for the Latin Studies curriculum, for AAPI. The Jewish and Muslim identity initiatives are critically important to make sure that we have a comprehensive approach to tackle the hate and ignorance that we're seeing in the street. Law enforcement alone will not be able to solve this. You can't arrest your rate of hatred. You can't deport your rate of hatred. You can't defund your rate of hatred. Double down on education and community building. That's what works.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Well, we'll see how it all works out as the administration gets itself organized. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll tell you about a new bill from Congressman Dan Goldman that seeks to bring down concession stand prices at certain sports stadiums. Stay with us.
In Focus with Cheryl Wills. A weekly show discussing decisions and potential solutions for issues making an impact in your community and your city. If it's important to New Yorkers, then it's being talked about here. In Focus with Cheryl Wills. Sunday mornings at 10:30 on New York One.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. $16 beers, $7 hot dogs. It's not just the cost of tickets that can set you back at stadiums and arenas, but those high food prices as well. Could it violate federal antitrust law? New York Congressman Dan Goldman wants the Federal Trade Commission to find out. Our Shannon Ryan caught up with him in Washington, D.C. about his new bill that's called the Hot Dog Act.
There are a lot of things Congressman Dan Goldman loves about New York sports.
I love going to Knicks games. I love going to the Liberty games. Very passionate sports fan. Go to Rangers games. And it's a great way to celebrate New York.
But what Goldman, who represents Manhattan and Brooklyn, does not celebrate is a $16 beer. According to his office, that is the average price of a brew at Madison Square Garden, home to his beloved Knicks.
Because you're a captive audience, that's just not fair.
At Highmark Stadium, home to the Buffalo Bills, Goldman found consumers are charged $10 a beer. Feeling that such a buzzkill burdens working families, he's introducing legislation, first shared exclusively with Spectrum News, that, if approved, will commission the FTC, a federal consumer protection entity, to study concession food and drink pricing at stadiums that benefit from federal funds. The study's findings would be presented to Congress along with recommendations.
When American tax dollars go towards subsidizing these arenas and stadiums, those people then should be able to afford to go to the events that occur there.
Goldman's proposed legislation is called the Honest Oversight of Ticket Dining and On-Site Grub, also known as the Hot Dog Act.
Well, you got to have something a little catchy.
Goldman points to a 2024 Washington Post analysis that found, well, the New York Yankees charged $6.29 for a hot dog, and Mets $7.19. Some teams were charging less than $3.
The FTC obviously enforces our antitrust laws, and because the stadiums have a monopoly over their concessions, they have to comply with some of those regulations and laws.
In Washington, Shannon Ryan, New York One.
It is time for a break. Coming up, we are exactly 2 weeks away from Inauguration Day. I'll talk about Mayor-elect Mamdani's economic agenda with a member of his transition team. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it's saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. We've got about 2 weeks to go until Inauguration Day, and the city is preparing for a new mayoral administration. One of the pillars of that administration is Mayor-elect Mamdani's campaign promise of affordability and economic change. My next guest, Derek Hamilton, is playing a part in helping Mamdani deliver on those promises. He currently serves on the Mayor-elect's Transition Committee that deals with economic and workforce development. He, of course, is a professor at the New School for Social Research. Welcome to the program. Very good to see you.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be on your show.
How have the conversations been? We've talked to a number of people involved with the Transition Committee. They seem to have lots and lots of people. Are there any specific priorities that have been identified that we can look forward to?
I mean, the main priority is what the mayor-elect campaigned on, which is centering people, trying to figure out structures and policies that really facilitate New Yorkers to be their best selves. You're right, he has a lot of people involved, and I think that's part of his approach to be somewhat Boolean, particularly in this stage, looking for really good ideas.
Well, speaking of good ideas, you are best known, or at least this is where I first heard of you, as the baby bonds guy. You've got this groundbreaking work, which is government-funded savings accounts that are tax-protected, similar to a 529 account that are used to help people save for college tuition, but it would be provided to children at birth. And, well, describe how such a program might work and might benefit New Yorkers.
And to be distinct from the current Trump accounts that are being promoted right now, baby bonds are essentially a birthright to capital. I liken it to Social Security. We have a pension fund developed for all Americans that's reserved by the government to ensure that people have asset security as they age into the twilight of their life. But we have nothing for young adults that are beginning a lifetime to try to have purpose and achieve economic security. So beyond subsistence, why don't we provide everyone, every New Yorker with a capital foundation, an account, some seed capital so that they can actually purchase a home, a down payment, some seed capital so that they can finance an education without the albatross of debt, or some capital to start a business. So the simple idea of baby bonds is ensuring that everybody has a capital foundation as an investment to build wealth, so that we know the benefits of wealth. it's no longer the exclusive domain of the wealthy.
Yeah, the way that it compounds, the compound interest is really quite extraordinary, right? I mean, as an economist, you know this, but a lot of our viewers may not realize that the expected return on even a small amount that you start with, it would be expected to double every 7 years or so, right?
Pretty much. I mean, you know, again, Connecticut provides a good example of how those accounts are managed in that state, not in an individual way, but you have a really astute treasurer, in this case, Treasurer Russell in Connecticut, that's managed that money in a pool in a way that's drawing really high returns and essentially will ensure that, in that case of Connecticut, a $3,200 investment at birth translates into something like $12,000 to $18,000 for, in the case that they do, all kids that are born assisted with Medicaid finance. Again, low-income children across the state, you know, across rural, urban areas, that all of them will potentially have an opportunity to build wealth.
Okay, well, it's good to know that that kind of thinking is at least part of the Mamdani transition. You recently published an op-ed in which you wrote that, quote, affordability alone is not enough. You also said, quote, our government is managing deprivation rather than investing in New York and building shared prosperity. What can a mayoral administration do to ensure the proper levels of investment in the way that you describe?
Yeah, and you know, there will not be a silver bullet policy. So I think a really good mayoral administration will have to do two things. Change the framework by which we understand economics to begin with. One from, again, trying to treat poverty as something that's simply to be managed, but shifting a focus where the state invests in New York City's most treasured resource, and that is its people. So you need that framework, you need that understanding, and that way you can come up with policies and implementations that fit together. So take the mayor-elect's agenda, affordable transportation. Beyond affordable transportation, ensuring that people can have something as fundamental as a home. So not only does that provide security, the well-being and the safety, the comfort, without the threat of worrying about eviction or foreclosure. Imagine what that can do for people's capacity. You know, I'll finish with this point really quick, Errol, which is, at the end of the day, the point of an economy is to facilitate us to be our best selves. So not only are people the outcome, but people are also the means that, when properly resourced, people are the engine of growth. They are innovators, they are artists, they create productivity that not only benefit themselves, but are multipliers that benefit the well-being of all of us. Well, and they promote tranquility.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because there are a fair number of people, some of them might even be in your economics department, who think of economics quite differently, who think of it as, you know, kind of jungle warfare, animal spirits, you know, a zero-sum game where the strong eat the weak. Is this a shared understanding within, say, the transition committee, what you just described?
Well, I can't speak for the entire committee, but I can certainly say that the mayor-elect's proposals and his rhetoric is very aligned with an agenda that's centering people and the environments in which we live. And you're right, it is a break. I'd say that the past 50 years or so, the approach that essentially a supply side notion of economics, that simply if you just direct all resources towards the firm, that it creates a level of innovation. And here's the other point, a discipline, a managing of people that will promote their best selves. It hasn't really worked out for us as of late. When we see this gross inequality and despair, not only along economic dimensions, but even political dimensions, it hasn't served us well. So what we're talking about here is that people are well beyond simply inputs into a production process. And then here's the other point, consumer agents to whom we offer redistribution in a charitable sense, but rather people are the innovators. People are creative and productive. And here's the other point, they want to produce. One of the fundamental purposes of humanity is to be able to define purpose and have the resources to achieve that purpose. And we're at the precipice of really implementing this in a city like New York, which leads the world.
Well, in our last minute, what's something that you'd like to see done in the first 100 days that would tell you the administration and indeed the city is on the right path forward?
Well, personnel is critical. I mean, so continue with appointing the right people to lead this city and get that agenda going forward. I think the mayor-elect has certainly identified at least 5 big things by which we can build upon.
Some of those are more far-reaching than others, right? I mean, early childhood education is very different from, say, a fast and free bus as far as what it will mean for people and what it will mean for the economy, right?
Absolutely. And then here's the point I'm trying to get at. Again, you led with, I'm known as the person that innovates around baby bonds, and I'm very proud of that. But let's be clear, wealth is a critical dimension of our well-being, but not the end all. The point is that you will need a package of goods and services with a similar concept. Like, you need a policy concept that says, how do we ensure that people are invested in to be their best selves? You need transportation, you need childcare, you need housing, you need education, you need them all. And you know, the question of can we afford it? New York City has a really big budget. A lot of it is the question of priorities. I know this might be a controversial statement, and I'm not the first one to make it, which is, you know what the best crime fighter is? A good job. So there are many ways in which you can promote our well-being, and I think we can get creative and do the right investment that promotes our well-being.
Okay. Thank you very much for that insight. We look forward to talking with you again in the future. Thanks a whole lot.
I appreciate you, sir.
Okay. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything.
Hey, brother. Be careful.
Movies.
I've got this condition where I don't feel pain.
You're a superhero.
No. Series.
There was another murder in the building.
Sports. Reality.
Here's to a summer you'll never forget.
News.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
You await your orders.
Even more of your favorites with live TV.
Welcome into First Take.
Stream across your devices and watch anywhere, at home or out and about. It's the entertainment experience you've been waiting for. Streaming apps included at no extra cost.
Scott Van Pelt, get a good look.
With live TV and on demand. All together, all in one place for you to enjoy.
It's whatever kind of adventure we want it to be.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m.